Lani Dame is a career coach and instructor for the Strategies for Today's Jobs classes here at ACC. She brings over 15 years of experience in marketing, customer success, customer experience, and organizational transformation for technology companies of all sizes and stages, from startups, one called Gravitant, to Fortune 500 enterprises, IBM, Dell, you've heard of them. Lani is an organization and relationship systems coach, ORSC, that's an official title, trained and holds certifications from IC Agile, Scrum Alliance, and Pragmatic Marketing. Damn. She also infuses her work with her continued learning about organizational culture, psychology, leadership, and systems. And today, I would like to welcome her for her presentation, Ready, Set, Job Search. Tips to keep you energized on your job search.
So Shannon already shared a lot about me, but one thing I will say is that what I speak about today is, to me, this combination of how do you really set yourself up mindset-wise, mentally, that then makes the actions you're going to take and the actions you choose to take a lot more effective. So we know that just your mindset, what happens, is extremely important. So Shannon already shared a little bit about me, just to talk about what we're going to go through. So we are going to do a reflection activity. If you don't have any paper, can I have you hand out some sheets? If you don't have a sheet of paper, we're going to do some notes. Shannon can hand you one. Make sure you have a pen for our initial activity. Then we're going to talk a little bit about mindset and action, and really what does that mean, because it can mean a lot of different things. So I'm going to define that. And then the focus here is I'm all about practicality. Like, it's important, but tell me how to apply it. So we're going to talk about some high impact practices of how to really make sure that this is something that you integrate into your day-to-day and to support you in your job search. And then I'll end with some questions, some prompts that you can take with you to continue to think about how do you want to design your job search experience. All right, looks like everybody's got a sheet of paper now. Perfect. All right, so to start off, we're actually going to put our pens down. We're not going to write yet. All right. I'm going to have you all close your eyes if that works best. If closing them completely doesn't work, at least kind of softening your gaze. And take a big breath. I know I need to. Whew. It's been a week, right? Lots going on. But I want you to take a moment and step away from what's been going on, that kind of day-to-day. And I want to have you think about a time where you were most energized and in the flow in your work. And that can be at a job. It could also be volunteering. It could even be in your home. So whether you think in words, images, or just some thoughts that may come to mind, just kind of think about that. When were you most energized? What were you like when you were at your best? What did you think? What were some of those thoughts that went through your mind? What are you doing? Now look around at that environment you're in. What's noticeable about the environment, that setting? Maybe some colors, some words are coming to mind.
Like-minded souls.
All right, keep it for a moment and then you're going to write it down. But yeah, think about definitely if you're surrounded by other people, who else might be there. And if you do see people there, Who are they? Or what are they like? What stands out about them? Just take a couple seconds to gather any other of that information that you want to remember and bring forward. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes and write down on your paper what you noticed. So I'll give you all a couple minutes. I'll just read off the prompts so you remember. So where was the setting where you're most energized in your flow and work? What were you like when you were doing your best? What did you think? What are you doing? What kind of environment are you in? And are there people around you, and what are they like? Especially with AI, and resilience is on that list, along with like adaptability, flexibility. So I think those all connect to resilience, which is how can you be more adaptable? How can you be flexible? Also, how do you manage yourself, which we'll talk about in a minute. So this becomes not just something that you do for yourself, but then something that really does become infused in how you work. All right, so how do we get there? Because again, everybody says, you're so resilient, be resilient. Ugh. So I like to look at it through these sides. As I mentioned from the beginning, you have to get your mindset. You have to understand what fits underneath that. And then you have to pair that with actions. Because if you're just living in your head, then you're not moving forward. But if you're just taking action and you don't have your mindset, you're probably being less efficient, less effective, because you're overwhelmed or you're having things get in your way. So for mindset, that starts with values and beliefs. So even from the reflection that we did, I can already see from those who shared some of their values and beliefs. So collaboration, helping others, like those are most likely something that those individuals is really on top of their values. Then there's wellness, which is thinking again for your mind. How do you help your mindset? We'll go into a little bit more of that. Motivation. So motivation is huge, especially when you go from, I have a structure that I've been doing every day and a job, and then, I need to motivate myself and make sure that I'm moving in the right direction. It's difficult. Yeah, question.
I just wanted to confirm, will your presentation be sent out or on the newsletter or on the website or
Yes.
something like that? Yeah, okay.
Yep, definitely. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
and it will be recorded. Yes. And motivation also is a huge one, and this is a good one to know about for yourself, is are you someone who does need that structure or someone who like can pretty much make it for themselves? You see that a lot if you are considering like entrepreneurship in your own business. Look at your motivation. See if that's something you really want to do. All right, emotional regulation. So this one goes into, we know we're going to face those times where we're feeling down on ourselves. We're like, since Shannon said it, I'm going to say it. This is shitty. Like it's not working. Like I'm feeling some rejection. All completely normal. The question is, how do you respond to that? What do you do in those times to then get yourself back to a space that's a little bit more, I don't even want to say positive, but a little bit more like, I guess, even, or where you acknowledge that, yes, something bad has happened, but I'm able to move past it. Then when you get into actions, so a lot of this on the action side to me goes back to setting yourself up for success, especially when how you organize yourself, how do you make sure that you're moving forward. So productivity, how do you make sure that you've got things, whether it's like I know how to time myself or I know what I'm working on. Organization, this one's a huge one with a job search. You're dealing with like lots of applications, you're customizing your resume for every job application, right? So you've got to make sure you're storing that so that when you get that interview, you know what copy of the resume got sent over. Then you might have someone who comes a month or so later after you applied, and did you track? And did you know what stage of the job search that company is with? So organization is a really key aspect that can help. Then the accountability. So thinking about, again, how do you make sure that you are holding yourself accountable or getting yourself some assistance in that area. And then one of the aspects that's my personal favorite, I should probably not stand in front of this, my personal favorite is experimentation. And I will share, I'll go ahead and share it now. So I have always been a more like intuitive person. Like that's how I make a lot of my decisions. But I also view it as like an experiment where I'm like, okay, let me try this out. Let me see what happens. So at South by Southwest this year, there was a speaker there who just released a book called Tiny Experiments. And I love it because truthfully at some point it will be incorporated in the course and replace SMART goals, because I'm not a huge fan of SMART goals. They have some value. But when you're doing something like a job search, it's more about what are those experiments. So for example, if you're networking, or if you're like, I want to network more, but it's not something that I really love, then you might say, you know what, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna commit to do it for a month, and I'm gonna commit that I'm gonna go to one networking event a month, and then at the end of the month, you're gonna look back, and you're gonna see your learnings. That's the key piece, your learnings. It's not necessarily did I achieve it or not, because guess what? At the end of the day, that doesn't help you move towards getting a job. It's what did you learn? Like maybe you learned something that this event is more for me, or I need to do more virtual, or I need to do more in person because to really get the audience I want, that's gonna be a better fit. So experimentation is more about learning, and it's less about did I check it off a list. So that's why I like it better than SMART goals. All right, so let's look at some specific mindset practices, and then we'll get into some actions. The other thing as we start going into this is I'm gonna give you a lot of ideas. I'm an idea person, that's one of my top Clifton strengths. So I'm gonna give you a lot. Don't do them all at once, don't try. One of the things we talk about is progress over perfection. Make those tiny actions. Think about maybe one, write down one, or maybe two that you're like, hey, I'm going to experiment with that one. I'm gonna incorporate that down. So when we talk about mindset, like I said, one of the first things is writing down your career guides and your values. So this is the first activities that we do in our course, because it is so important to know what is the direction you're going in, or what's most important. Like what are those priorities that are most important to you that you're doing in your career, and that maybe influence what type of company, what type of job. I think, Taylor, you were talking about sustainability, so I'm hearing sustainability is important to you. So that's probably something that you would have on your career guide and values. So very important of thinking about what are those. For values, I usually stick to like 5 or less. Like really think about like what are those? So for me, collaboration, connection, and creativity are my top 3. And I like everything to be alliteration, so I went with all C's. But those are very common in everything that I do. Then we talk about getting clear on your direction. So once you know at least, hey, these are in my life values and guides, then getting clear on like what's the role, what's the industry, what are you interested in. There's some really great resources, or even start with AI, have a conversation with AI, and look at what are some of those different industries or some different areas, or even potential roles that you might not be thinking of in different companies. So again, you can build this in a lot of different ways. We heard folks talk about different sectors that they've worked in. So that's a great one. You may have already been working in one sector, but maybe you want to move into a new industry, but keep the same role. Something to look and think about. Then, as I mentioned, you're going to face challenges. So you can proactively plan for how to overcome those challenges. Let me remind myself what this thing means. No, I didn't write it down. But there's a process that I've heard about where you do exactly this, where you think about like, what are the obstacles I'm going to overcome? And then you put down how you will overcome them. So it might be, I know that I'm going to have some days where I'm just going to be overwhelmed and where I'm not going to want to do anything. So then you think about, what are those activities, or what are you going to do when that happens? It might be that for you just need to go take a walk outside, or maybe it's you need some downtime. You're like, I don't want to think about this at all. Or maybe it's call a friend. Again, everybody's different in how they overcome those obstacles. Some other ones, using daily rewards when you complete your high priority tasks. So however y'all are motivated. I love going to coffee shops. So when I was doing a job search, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to a coffee shop at least, once a week. That's my little reward for doing stuff. So think about, what are your, little rewards. Back to some of that mindset and counteracting a lot of that negative self-talk. Think about, how do you convert yourself to that positive self-talk? There's a lot around this, positive intelligence, or just even, how do you pause, get awareness, and then shift that thinking. Again, I always say I want to caution, I'm not, because I don't ever want to be that person who's really toxic positivity. So I'm not saying like always be sunshine and happy. I'm just saying don't stay in that space where you're down on yourself or you're down on your situation. This next one I really love, which is identify how stress manifests for you. So often we wait till the end where we're like, all of a sudden I burned out. What happened? But there is some science behind that says there's these 3 stages. There's alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. So take a moment to say, what is alarm for you? What is exhaustion, or what does resistance look like? And what is exhaustion? I'm trying to think I know for myself, like I feel a lot physically. And so like alarm for me is when I start like maybe getting a little headache and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about too much. I'm feeling like I'm running even though I'm not physically running. So maybe I need to slow down. I think resistance is where if someone asks me a question when I'm in that state, I'm automatically like wanting to shut them down because I'm like, I already got too much on my plate. I need you to go away. And then obviously exhaustion is like, I can't think anymore. I can't do anymore. Like if anything comes at me, I'm gonna cry. Like I'm just done. So again, a lot of this is awareness of yourself and like what works for you. And then build in those breaks and self-care activities that energize you. You've got some on your list. So if talking with a friend is important, then take that time. If being outside is important, then make sure that you build that into your schedule. Before I move on to mindset, any questions or anything that maybe you've personally done that you would add to this list? Yeah, Kendra.
Maybe in between the toxic positivity and negativity is the Wayne Dyer thing of, I think it was Excuse Me John, just simply start asking yourself the question, is it true? Start interrupting yourself
Yeah.
with that. You don't have to go to the positive, go to negative, just interrupt it, or
Yeah.
it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to interrupt yourself.
Yeah, thanks for sharing those. There's a lot of those. I also like Brene Brown talks about what's the story I'm telling myself, which is very similar to the Wayne Dyer one you shared. I can hear that. So it's like, how do you disrupt that? Awesome. Yeah.
I'd like to go back to a point you made maybe on the previous slide. And when you talk about what employers are looking for the future, particularly because of the impact that AI is going to have and so forth. So I went to a kind of workshop talking about the worker in 2030 and so forth.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That'd be interesting.
And what was interesting, I learned a new term, okay? And they call it AQ, okay?
Ah,
All right?
okay.
So, you know about IQ,
Yeah.
right? And then, you know, we've gone through this period, I would say, the last 10 years or so, where EQ, your emotional intelligence, your emotional quotient was key in terms of how well you communicate,
Yeah.
how well you interact. You know, your interpersonal skills was, you know, a very high in demand characteristic that employers were looking for. So now, what these futurists are saying is that the new key quotient is going to be your AQ, which is your adaptability quotient, your ability to adjust with change, right? And how well, again, going on to that resilience thing, how well, you know, you fit into the environment. And it's kind of funny because it goes all the way back to what Charles Darwin said, you know, back in the early 1900s, right? Is that it's not the strongest that survive, it's the most adaptable.
Yeah. And also the most friendliest, I've learned.
Right.
They said, yes, there was a historian who was talking about this, how like if you go back and look at how humans have evolved, we look friendlier. It's kind of like what happened with dogs as well. So I always like to bring that out because like everybody's like survival of the fittest, we're fighting against each other. Not true. Actually, the friendliest, the ones who are more adaptable, were the ones who are most likely to evolve. So I love that. Thank you.
Kind of tied into the positive self-talk, reflection.
Yes.
So sometimes going, hey, I fought this battle before and I won, can really help you get through the next battle.
I love that. Reminding yourself that you've done it. You've done it before. Yeah. And I would say probably with 100% certainty, you all have done it before. Again, it's not the best situation, but at least you know and can remind yourself you can get through it. Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
So when I think Shannon had mentioned at one point, it's really reminded me, when it comes to mindset, I think framing is really important as well. I think oftentimes we end up in the situation where it's very hard to see regular progress, especially when we're dealing with consistent rejection.
Yeah.
I think the X's checklist or whatnot of being able to go out and earn your no is something that like has been an interesting reframing that actually, as you're going through and getting out there, a no is something that like you have to work for and like put some risk out, and then once you have a yes, you have what you're looking for. But it feels like you have some sense of accomplishment because you've at least gone out and done something. And then as well for me, one thing has been extremely helpful is going through interviews while I'm interested in trying to find whether or not a good fit will happen for a role. For me, oftentimes I'll really look up success in an interview if I made a connection with and am able to have a extending relationship with the folks that I get to interview with in the process.
Yeah. I love those. I hadn't heard about earning your no. And I love that. That's a great way to reframe it because what it shows is that you're out there. I think Brene Brown talks about it as you're in the arena. Like you're not just sitting back, you're actually doing something. And we know that when you do something, you're going to have those no's and you're going to have those yeses. So I love that. And even the second
I
one.
can go a little bit into that. It's,
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. It's from sales.
Yeah.
So you literally physically make a charge. It can be virtual if you want it, but you just put no on like the entire thing, and at the very bottom is a yes. And so for each no that you get, you cross it off, and you're like, I'm one step closer to my yes. And then if you get
that's
to your
cool.
yes before your no's are done, then good for you.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. I love that. I love the visual aspect that you shared, Shannon. Thank you. Yeah.
And one more thing occurred to me, there are 2 times where a negative emotion actually propelled me to success. Because like, you can't ignore that. You can think back to this time where you had a negative, there was a particular no or a negative thought, and you just, it got you so worked up that you started moving forward, and it just propelled you to
Yes.
success. So
Yeah.
remember that that's possible too.
Yes, exactly. We actually learn more from our failures than we do our successes.
We're back negatives make a positive.
2 negatives make a positive. Yeah.
From my chess coach experience, it's not win, draw, lose, it's win, draw, learn. But the challenge is, can you still find something to learn from your wins? And I had to shake
Yeah.
some of my students and say, hey, you were lucky on this win. How would you have done if your opponent had done this instead?
Yeah. One moment. I want to go back to even like you said, something else to learn, like what Ben said is you don't know, like you don't control what happens in the interview, but if you make a connection, you've earned something, right? You've learned something from it, and you never know when that might help you in the future. So again, back to finding those small, like smaller positive, not goals, but I guess achievements. Yeah, Rhonda.
I was just going to share, I had the last time I was unemployed, because I'm in the tech industry too, and I got laid off about a year ago. And I had a really hard learning lesson in that shortly after I was initially laid off, I had recruiters reaching out to me, and I had an opportunity to interview, well, I did interview with a certain state organization. And I didn't get the analyst 2 position, but they really liked my personality and everything. So they asked the recruiter when an analyst 1 position became available if I was going to apply. And but the pay was significantly lower. But I was new in this game, right? Like it was not quite half the amount what I was accustomed to earning, and it's contracts, so I wouldn't be getting benefits or anything. But I was just like, darn it, like, no, like, you need to come up. And I kept trying to negotiate. The recruiting company wouldn't negotiate. I went back to one of the individuals who hired me. I said, would they consider a corp to corp? I can get an EIN number. They came back and said, no, we prefer you to go through our vendor list. So I think I frustrated the individual who had interviewed me, so I kind of shot myself in the foot. Interestingly enough, it's come back, circle around. My resume got submitted to it again. Fortunately, the recruiter is just a little bit more than with that initial, but I had a hard learning lesson. Know what your absolute no is. Figure out what it is that will allow you to cover your bills, because that initial amount would have covered my bills and given me a little bit of spending money. So don't make the mistake I did, because I mean, I ended up getting a job, but it wasn't until 9 months until I got my next opportunity, and it nearly psychologically broke me, because I went through all my unemployment, all my savings, and you don't want to get to that point, you know?
Yeah.
And if you do get to that point, then that alarm resistance exhaustion happens much faster, because you go into panic mode much faster. So,
And sometimes you never recover, even
Right.
when you do get a job.
yeah.
Yeah, you carry that. Well, Rhonda, thank you so much for sharing that. You know,
For
very.
what it's worth, I'm sorry to take up the time.
No. Very. Part of this is also learning from others, right? But yes, definitely. You know, with salary, we talk about make sure you know your low, which is exactly what's the lowest I'm willing to accept. That's going to like support me, like what's my little bit of money, like what's that for you, know your mid-range, and then know your high, like ideally I would love to be there. So yes, having those, especially up front, makes it a lot, I don't want to say easier, but at least you kind of know and are able to decide based on the opportunity, whether it's something that you're willing to back down on or negotiate, you want to negotiate up. Yes, thank you. All right, any other mindset ones? Y'all have given me some great new ones. I'm like, oh, these are awesome.
I need to be around people. So
Yes.
that gets me out of my own brain. We talked about SWAT earlier. It's
Yeah.
people coming together. I'm reading a book right now. It's Never Search Alone. I'm part of a job search council. And having strangers or people or connections do like a reverse exit interview to shine light on your blind spots that you might not be aware of. That helps me with my mindset, is getting those people in the room. And we all have something in common. Like, we're all in this room for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great one to say, again, back to maybe some of the notes you made during the reflection. If you're the type of person who saw yourself surrounded by other people, again, think about how do you add some of those people into your mix. All right. Awesome. So let's move on to some of the actions. So again, some of these are very in companion to the mindset, but this gets more like, okay, you've taken the time, you've got some of your mindset practices. Now think about what are those actions? So what are those things that you're going to take to move yourself forward? First one, decide what you can realistically do in a week. So I know often we're like, yes, I can job search. It is my full-time job. I know when I was job searching, I could not put in 40 hours a week. Mentally, it was just too much. So for me, I was like, 30 is feasible where I can still get a lot done, but I can allow myself like the thinking space and kind of the decompression time that I needed. So be realistic. I also originally was like, I'm going to apply to 3 things a week. Too much. Because I was very like specific about what I wanted to apply for. I was very much thorough in targeting that application, and that would take me a little bit longer than I originally thought. So again, some of these things you learn along the way as well. You're not going to know them right off the bat, but test them out and see what happens. Another thing that one of our coaches talks about a lot is scheduling a cadence on not just when you plan and reflect, as RD over here talked about reflection. So we talk a lot about planning. I think that gets the bulk of the focus is what's your plan? Plan at the beginning of the week, write down in your notebook what you're going to do. Reflection often gets forgotten. And so that goes back to if you did learn something that week, if you didn't write that reflection down, you might end up repeating that same mistake. So take that time to reflect on what you're doing and then ask yourself some questions. Like this is a great one to go in and say, hey, what are some reflection questions I can ask myself? Batch activities and assign which days you'll work on them. Does anybody have a day where they do like their job searching? Or are you all doing that every week?
Every day.
Every day?
Well, 5 days a week.
All right, 5 days a week? Yeah, back there.
At least I've kind of found that like Monday, Friday seem to be the big dates for when positions will drop. So I try to really jump in right when they hit the market.
Yeah. Yeah, so one thing that we've seen with a lot of, just in the job search and a lot of job seekers, if you look every day, it gets depressing. Why? You're seeing the same jobs. Things haven't moved. And so the suggestion is to have certain days where you look for jobs. So you say, I'm going to go out on the job boards. I'm going to look for those jobs, and I'm going to put down which ones I'm going to do. And then maybe your next day or next 2 days are putting together your job materials. And so you're going to get your resumes customized, your cover letters. Maybe one day is for networking outreach. Now that you've got those companies you're going to apply for, so you're going to outreach to that recruiter or find that hiring manager or someone from LinkedIn who might be working there. So you can do your networking one day and then have your day to apply. I was trying to think of which is the best day. I don't know. Does anybody know the best day to apply? Definitely as soon as possible. You want to do, but if you're doing it within a week, I think it's just not Friday. I think it's just not Friday. Yeah.
Well, I think it could depend on industry, like when they primarily will be kind of looking around.
Yeah. I don't think that we necessarily know, but if you know, share. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of throw this insight out for anybody applying to state positions. If you get on catch, you look around, you see anything that says ongoing, be careful with that one. The reason being I say this is because if you see ongoing, that typically means they've already got an applicant in mind. And more times than not, if you see ongoing, keep an eye on it. You'll see something either, this now is locked. It'll happen within 48 hours, or sometimes they just forget to take it down. So if you happen to see something that is say ongoing, get it in quick, because you can still get it in there. I know that for a fact. I've interviewed with a couple of state agencies that have told me that point blank.
So state agency is ongoing, means apply fast.
And just to clarify, CAPS is what?
CAPS is it's the main system that you get. If anybody wants to
It's
Google
their
state agencies?
Yes. For state agencies.
So CAAS,
They all read CAPPS.
CAPPS, okay.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, Rhonda.
I don't know if this is accurate, but I was told by someone that with AI, when you, with the jobs that are available and you submit your profiles, and sometimes on LinkedIn you'll see like over 100 applicants or whatever. I was told that often some of those, I don't know what to call it, AI generator, database or whatever, that they're usually monitored and resumes get pulled from individuals like over in India. And with the time difference, so if you can get your resume submitted really early in the morning, like as soon as it, like the job get posted, because of the time difference, you have a better chance of having your resume pulled. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but just something to.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. A couple things I'll share. LinkedIn, they've actually now changed to where it doesn't say applied anymore. It says viewed, because that was always the truth. Like, you didn't actually apply, you clicked and then went to the website and viewed. And then we always suggest apply on the company site, not on LinkedIn. All right, again, some of this stuff is just experimenting, testing them out. So we talked about crafting measurable targets you control. I mean, I love the suggestions that we've gotten already. Again, maybe that's more of experiments, or maybe that's more, I just want to have conversations. Like, that's something you can control. You can make a connection. You can't control whether they're going to offer you a job or not. So talked a little bit around developing a filing system to save your job descriptions and customized materials. So whatever that looks like for you, make sure that you're doing that. Very, very important. Copy, paste your job descriptions. Don't just save the link, as the links often will disappear. So we've had people who've said, I went back, I got it called for an interview, and then I went to look at the job description, had the link only saved, and they didn't have the job description anymore. And you definitely don't want to be in that situation. All right, I think y'all have definitely talked a lot about finding accountability, job search partner or team. So again, the other thing is, like, this can be accountability, and it can also be your like support team. So you might have, maybe you have a couple different teams. So your accountability is going to keep you on track. You might have some folks that are more your support team that can really lift you up when you need that. Ben, did you have a comment?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'm
go ahead.
just going to mention for anyone interested in developing a file system and would like to put together like a digital database to keep track of your records and would like any assistance, I'd be more than glad. Feel free to reach out to me. I can help. I know some tools like that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. There are tools for like tracking, filing. I know for tracking your jobs, I used Teal at the time. I know some people like spreadsheets. I like a good tool. Asana is another one that I've used. And then I now use like Box, Notion. So whatever kind of like works for you to keep organized.
What was the first one you said?
Teal?
Teal.
Yeah. And I always look at their free version. Some of the free versions are good. And then some of them, like Teal does a little bit of everything, but their job tracking was free and it was really good. If you're going to use like their AI resume creators, like similar to JobScan, you'd have to pay for that to get some benefit for that. But you could just do a portion of it and be fine. So definitely free tools. Love it. And then, yeah, experiment and learn from different strategies, because you might try something and it works and something else doesn't. Anything else that you all would add to this list? You've already thrown some out, but I love it. Yeah, Kendra.
You have to be aware of your particular organizing or memory style, because a traditional filing system may not make any sense to you. So you have to think about, okay,
Yes.
are you better paper? Are you better computer? Can you do it on a phone? And if you have to do it in a method that you're not used to, what is a method that you can use to help make sure you can do what the company needs you to do?
Yeah.
Because some people are visual learners, some are hidden, and some are more physical
Yeah.
organization. You're either visual, you're hidden, you're a macro, or you're micro. You need to know what works for you. And
Yes.
experiment a little bit to find out that if I follow Clutterbug, and that's an interesting system. She's, by the way, ADHD, to an adult, so some of these are meant for people who have that
Like,
problem.
yeah, neurodiversity. Yeah, that's, and thank you for bringing that up in terms of all of this is very much, and the reason I like to offer a variety is because you do need to choose what's best for you. And I agree on the organizing side. I'm very visual, so like I have to use Miro first. Like I love it. I've got a lot built in there. My coworker, she's like, I need to put this into an outline. She's like, I need it in a document where I can read it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like you kind of know what works for you. Yeah. Any other thoughts in terms of the actions? Yes. TEAL.
What brought up was Texas education.
Huh. Teal, yeah, maybe teal tool.
Yeah, but is it, that's what it came up with?
It'd probably be .com, but I can't say for certain that that's what it is. I don't have it saved, so I'd have to check my computer. All right, perfect. Thanks for the help, guys.
Tools.
All right. So again, what this really is about is designing your experience for this time as you're doing your job search. So as I mentioned, to always start with your values, starts with understanding what's most important to you. Think about how you're going to structure your job search. Think about who's involved. So who's part of your job search support team and accountability team. And then of course, what will I do when I start to feel overwhelmed? What are some of those things you're going to do for yourself and how you're going to communicate out? All right. And I'll share this, but giving y'all a minute to write. And I'll come back to this slide as well so you can get the questions down. I'm going to do one last little plug for our strategies for today's jobs. I actually took this class before I taught it, and it was more because I knew I was the type of person that needed other people, and I like having a coach. So they had a career coach, and I was like, that's what I need. I was like, I'm fairly certain I know most of the information, and I also know that I don't want to do this alone. So I took the course and then ended up applying and being like, okay, let me teach it. Let me have it out. And I really liked what we've been able to do with this course in terms of evolving it. It is a holistic, it's a fast-paced course. It's 4 weeks. We meet twice a week, so for a total of 4 hours a week. So it is, I would say, more on the intensive side because the intent is by the end of the 4 weeks, you are very clear on your direction. You have your resume, you know how to target a resume and target a cover letter. You have done a mock interview. And then we also do a lot of activities within our class about like writing your networking pitch, your brand statement, talking about what strategies you might use as you interview or even as you network. So our next one's starting April 28th. Yes, thank you. And Kendra is currently in our class. How do you like it so far, Kendra? It's only week 1.
Hey, I did accelerated courses during summer terms as a college student, so it's kind of like putting on, okay, it's old hat, but it still feels like it can fit. That mindset.
I love
Also,
it.
it's getting me back to that mindset of what it's like to have a job.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Back to having some structure. If you need some structure, it's really helpful to start off with that.
I've taken the class twice.
And we've been revamping it, so if you take it later this summer, it'll be not totally new, but there's a lot of new pieces, including a little bit of this mindset stuff that I've added in now. All right. Well, that is all I have for you today. Thank you all so much for your participation.